This Steve Jones Show podcast is now loading. The Steve Jones Show podcast is presented by Sunbury Motor Company, Purdy Insurance, and Brewers Outlet. Bringing you an in-depth look at Penn State sports and more. This is the Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. The Steve Jones Show is presented by Purdy Insurance, Brewers Outlet, and Sunbury Motor Company. Now from the Sunbury Motor Studio, here's Steve Jones.
That power being brought to you by our good friends at Brewers Outlet, Reagan Street in Sunbury, the beverage supermarket, imports, domestics, microbrews, the best selection of beer anywhere. Wine coolers, water, soft drinks, snacks. They roast their peanuts fresh and out every day. 6 great flavors of slushies. And the new ready-to-drink cocktails, High Noon, Jack Daniel's, Crown Royal, Pickle Bar led by the Barrels and the Dills. My two favorites, indeed, second to none. All at Brewers Outlet, Reagan Street in Sunbury, the beverage supermarket. Welcome back, Neal Coolong, sir. Our condolences to your family.
Well, we appreciate that. I'm bummed I had to miss it last week, but we're, as Belichick would say, we're on to Cincinnati.
Yes, on Cincinnati. All right, so 2 preseason games in. It's safe to say we've learned virtually nothing, but virtually means there might be some nuggets in there. What nuggets on the Steelers do you have?
I think, to me, my takeaway, and maybe I'm hyper-focusing on this, but my takeaway really has been the interior of the offensive line looks a little bit worse than I thought that it would, and the tackles probably look a little bit better than I thought they would. I'm not sure if that's good or bad. I think maybe they have the kind of a mashup of the same issue that we worried about this offseason. That unit is really going to be critical to where the team goes. Are they going to fall apart? Are they going to be in the 6-11 range, or are they a team that can flip what they've been and move up to 11-6 and compete seriously for a division championship? I think it's really going to come down to the offensive line. And all of a sudden now you have a center that can't snap the ball. I didn't anticipate that being an issue, but it's certainly something that you have to worry about moving forward, not in the sense that, 99% of the time he's not going to be successful, but small things like that tend to create panic within a unit, especially a younger one. I'm not 100% sure the group that they have is one that can take over the NFL, which is to say, second half of the season, your offensive line has to be a top-level unit. They have to be nearly flawless to be able to execute the full playbook, which you should be able to by that point in the season. They're young. They're putting a lot on that group. I'm not entirely sure. I have seen enough right now to make me really optimistic, both in the ground game as well as pass protection, that they'll be able to do that. They've got a lot of work ahead of them, and I feel like I'm repeating myself because this has really been kind of the key issue for the team over the last couple seasons. So we'll see. As Mike Tomlin would say, when they get under the stadium lights of the regular season, we'll see where they are. We'll see who they are and what has been done this offseason to truly develop them as a group as well as individuals. But they're going to need, in my opinion, a better overall stretch of production if they're going to control games the way they're probably going to have to, because I'm not sure the big plays are really going to be there for them. They're going to have to be ball control, and they're going to have to own things in the trenches. And that's not necessarily the easiest thing to have as your primary weapon in today's NFL. It's really easy to create disruption in situational football, and I don't know if they have the horses to be able to win that kind of a race. So they're going to have to do it ugly. They're going to have to beat people up, and they're going to have to do it 4 or 5 yards at a time. The line's the group that's going to get them there. And I don't, after 2 preseason games, I know it doesn't really count, doesn't really do anything. You saw some individual things that concerned you enough to think they're not going to be quite at that point early on. And how much run are you going to get from a 41-year-old quarterback over the second half of the season? Here's a hint. They've had a lot of quarterbacks that haven't done well in the second half of the season. So I hope they can get this fixed early. They can get something of a workable division lead moving into the tougher parts of the schedule toward the end.
Yeah, if this were Aaron Rodgers 5 years ago, it wouldn't be as much a concern for me, because that's one thing Rodgers was always brilliant, his ability to scoot in that little area of the pocket and buy time and then throw off balance and make plays. The concern is that's not the same guy, because Father Time continues to win.
Yeah, I mean, it's always going to be a concern. I like the fact that you point that out, because I think one aspect of Aaron Rodgers' game that's far more influential to his overall success but doesn't get recognition is there was a point, 2009, when Mike McCarthy was having Rodgers, all the arm talent that he had, the great vision that he had, he was having him drop back 7 steps and just bomb the ball down the field. They didn't have a deep route that they didn't love in that offense, the Packers offense. You might remember that shootout that the Steelers won on the last play of the game. Rodgers was on fire that entire game. Everything they threw was 15-plus down the field. Rodgers would end up getting hurt. He ended up throwing interceptions, and he wasn't as effective drive to drive. He could make big plays and big throws because the talent was obvious. To protect him when he came back, and this is in the 2010 season, which you might remember, they went on a little bit of a run there at the end, won the whole thing and kind of kicked off his career. But what they had him doing was dropping 3 instead of 7, and he was escaping to the side. He wasn't going up and out like C-gap. He wasn't going back and spinning around and trying to make a play deep in the pocket. He exited from the side of the pocket. And there are not a whole lot of guys that do that well, because really you have to have the vision to see where the rush is coming. You have to have the guts to stand in there, because you're not that far away from the lineman at all times. Blitzers are going to land a lot quicker, but he would get out to the side and kind of flip the field diagonally. So all of a sudden your crossing routes become vertical routes for the receiver based on where the quarterback was positioned. And Rodgers knew exactly how to do that. He knew where to go. And McCarthy and his staff, they did an excellent job recreating the game, really, for them, kind of a post-snap and a secondary post-snap, which wasn't all that difficult from what Bruce Arians was doing with Ben Roethlisberger in Pittsburgh. But Rodgers, I hate to say this without fear of getting things thrown at me, but Rodgers has a bit more arm talent than Roethlisberger does, though they're both legendary in that regard. Rodgers could hit anything from that angle. And it's like they stumbled upon this completely different player from what they had. He was obviously very good, but now he became one of the greatest of all time because he could hit anything down the field. So they set up all their routes to be crossers, basically, and not just plain vertical stuff. It's a lot harder to cover in man. You really have to do it in zone. So now you give Aaron Rodgers the benefit of going against a zone defense all the time and trying to keep him inside that pocket. That's a really hard task for any defense. Fast forward to now, why that's important. He still does that. He doesn't have the arm talent that he used to, but very accurate in that mid-range when he's not on the move, but when he is outside the pocket, when he resets the pocket, the routes of the receivers can change. And this is a big part of the reason why the Steelers brought in Jonnu Smith. He's a great receiver in that regard, in that he's going to take a break across the right of the field. Rodgers can reset and make that basically a vertical route for him. He's already stacked the defender, so he's got open lanes in there, and he's a big target. It doesn't take much to get him the ball. Rodgers can still manipulate the game in that way. It's a question of how will his body hold up? Will he have the ability to avoid those big hits that he had always been able to, just with his youth and the athleticism that he has? If they can do that, though, he could be a very effective player based on what the defenses are giving him. And they might actually be able to dictate what a defense does a little bit more often than they probably have been the last couple of years. So in that sense, I'm optimistic about what they can do with Rodgers, but it is kind of a moment-to-moment thing, and it really is going to be dependent on how they want to call their offense. Really, it seems like everything they're doing is they want to run the ball and kind of set Rodgers up for a quick release type of thing. In that, I don't know how effective the quarterback needs to be. I think it's more on your overall unit. We'll see, though. The improvisational ability that Rodgers has kind of, in my opinion, made a trademark of for his career is still there. I think we see flashes of that in New York. I think that it was just a very dysfunctional situation overall, particularly on offense. If they can allow him a little bit more freedom and risk it a little bit more to get him stepping out to the side, I think they can come up with something maybe more than what we're seeing right now. But we'll see how Arthur Smith wants to call it. Not typically what he wants to do with his quarterbacks. He kind of likes to keep them in place, make simple throws, and try to set receivers up in different ways. But I think with Rodgers, he has a very unique weapon that he can still make some magic down the field through that type of strategy.
Yeah, and then there's the rest of the division. It really was no surprise at all to me that Joe Flacco was named the starter in Cleveland. It doesn't mean he's the starter at midseason, but how have you looked at that interesting situation there?
I think it's real easy for us to get wrapped up in the minutia of it all, the second-to-second highlights. We talked recently about, keeping stats at camp. I think that feeds into this a little bit. 10,000-foot level, this is the easiest decision they're going to make. They're not going to start a third or a fifth-round rookie in week one. They signed Flacco to start. I don't think it was ever really a question. I would assume, my thought would be they signed Pickett to be a veteran backup because they were going to go get a rookie quarterback at some point. Maybe they didn't anticipate having two of them, and that is the wrinkle that will kind of stick with the team throughout the year. How they're going to handle that at cutdown day is certainly one of the top storylines we're looking forward to. But at the end of the day, I think Flacco was their starting quarterback in February before he even signed. I think they knew exactly what they wanted to do. Just considering all things being, the biggest one being the biggest contributor to their salary cap right now is a quarterback who probably isn't going to play this year. And I don't think they want to play this year. And they'll be happy to eat a good chunk against the cap next season to cut or trade, God forbid, Deshaun Watson. They're going to draft a quarterback next season. I think they were always going to do that. Depending on where they finish, they've got some capital from Jacksonville. They can move up and take a guy that perhaps has a little bit more overall talent, a little bit more pedigree than Dylan Gabriel or Shedeur Sanders. But this is the situation they knew they were going to be in. But to your point, it isn't necessarily 17 games. Exactly what I was saying in the last question about Aaron Rodgers. We'll see if he's able to last that long. It seems like most teams are going to have significant snaps played by two quarterbacks at least in a season. Yeah. And with 17 games now, and you're moving to 18 eventually, your backup quarterback becomes that much more valuable. And most teams seem to recognize that. You've got a high draft pick backing up a veteran or vice versa, or you have two veterans that aren't in competition with each other, but the backup is going to be ready to come in and play. I think that's what the Browns want to do. And the question is, do they see enough out of Gabriel and or Sanders to say that Pickett's expendable? It's a quarterback needy league. There are a lot of things that you got to do to keep the right roster in place, and Pickett might end up being more valuable elsewhere. We're not 100% sure that that's the case right now. It's possible that any one of them get traded, but Flacco is the one, in my opinion, that was always going to stay. And however they want to kind of mix and match the musical chairs behind him, it's going to be situation-based more than anything, knowing that all signs for that team point to drafting a quarterback next season.
Right, exactly. Then there's Cincinnati. Joe Burrow. It's amazing how there's two areas they just have never fixed. They've never fixed their offensive line, and they haven't fixed their defense. And I will give Trey Hendrickson credit. With each snap, his number gets higher.
Yeah, Cincinnati is playing with fire, and I think they know that they're playing with fire. My question would be this, and if this is what came up, you remember the hysteria that went out when the Raiders in Oakland at that point, they were in the process of just starting to move to Las Vegas, trading away Khalil Mack after they franchise tagged him.
Right.
I've heard from multiple people in the league that it wasn't a question of the Raiders not wanting to pay Khalil Mack. It's that they literally did not have the capital to be able to give him the extension that he wanted. All they had the money for was the tag. They couldn't give him an extension, and he wasn't going to play. So what it ended up being was they needed to get something for the asset. and it helped them to not have to pay that much money in that season, just considering all the money that they had to put in to build the stadium, to get the team moved and everything like that. NFL teams, as we've talked about often, are not as liquid as people think that they are. You need that cash on hand, but you can't give out a $150 million contract without 80% of the guaranteed portion of that contract being prorated, or in escrow. So if they didn't have the cash, they couldn't make the deal. So they ended up having to trade him. I get the feeling Cincinnati is kind of close to that. They're paying a lot of guys. Keep that in mind. And
yes,
obviously these are guys that you want to keep. They had the money budgeted for Trey Hendrickson at what his contract is. As far as we know, they might not have anything else beyond that. They might not be able to give him anything more, at least anything that he's interested in. My thought has been, more than likely, the best solution here is that Hendrick stays in Cincinnati because they're not going to get much for him in a trade now. And you throw $2 million in guaranteed money at him, give him an incentive for another 3 or 4 on very likely to be achieved things. You can probably make that work. That's always been my guess. But things go down to the last minute for a reason. It's not because it's that contentious. It's just both sides are going to kind of see how it works, how everything shapes out across the league, and then you'll come back for one final negotiation before the season. Every indication that we're getting, though, is it's beyond that. So if Cincinnati, in my opinion, if Cincinnati is digging in that deeply, I wonder if they're just not able to give him close to what he wants in an extension or any type of kind of placating raise for the season, just to get him through 1 year before both sides agree he's going to walk. I could see either situation playing out that way, but one thing we know is that he's not getting an extension from Cincinnati.
No.
And I don't think there are a whole lot of teams today that would want to give him that much money guaranteed after camp on a long-term deal. They'd take him for 1 year. I don't think they'll give him 4 years after a trade. And if they did, they're not giving Cincinnati anything. And Cincinnati is they're going to take a bath in the court of public opinion if they trade him for a 4th-round pick. They're not getting anything for a team that has the Super Bowl roster in place and just lost its best defensive player. That's not going to work for them. So I feel like this could extend for a little bit while longer. It really kind of depends on whether Hendrickson wants to sit on the value that he created last season and then try to convince teams that he can still get it done after sitting out half the year and playing really out of football shape in November or whatever week 11 is now. It's a tough spot for both of them to be in, but Cincinnati I don't think has handled this particularly well, which makes me think there's got to be another motivating factor in here. I mean, it can't be that difficult to get a guy a few million extra dollars unless you just don't have it.
Now I'll go to your own backyard. Are the Vikings confident in J.J. McCarthy?
I think they should be. At the very least, they're not going to present that they're not.
Right.
I would say, though, the big thing here is the natural assumption. Patrick Mahomes was drafted to sit his first year. He got 1 game in as a rookie. Alex Smith was the guy, the veteran. There was no doubt about that. Mahomes was going to kind of come on and learn. You saw enough from his first start, his rookie year, to say, like, hey, this kid's pretty good. They got talent. Right. He's obviously going to be their guy next year. I think Vikings fans look at that situation and kind of think that that's McCarthy. Well, McCarthy is in many ways the opposite of a prospect as Mahomes. They're both, I think they're both drafted, 9, 10, somewhere in there. But as far as physical talent goes, there weren't many that had more arm talent than Patrick Mahomes did. It was pretty obvious in college. He was also very raw. He needed a lot of work. McCarthy, still like any young player, he needs work, but he had a lot more exposure to a more, I hate to use this word, but realistic kind of offense. And there's a lot that he can do. I think he has underrated arm strength. He has great vision, great anticipation. I think he can be successful. Do we expect him to be the MVP of the league like Mahomes his second year? Talk to Vikings fans. I think a lot of them feel that that's the case, and it's largely powered by Kevin O'Connell. I think is if not the best coach in the game. He's one of the 2 or 3 best coaches in the game.
Really good.
They'll get a lot out of him. But I think that's going to be a defensive team this year. Most rookies, unless they're Patrick Mahomes, essentially, most first-year starting quarterbacks have a little bit of a learning curve, which is to say they're going to have some good games, they're going to have some bad games. I think the Vikings are built to handle that to some degree, but they're going to count on him a lot. That's for sure. O'Connell's not going to start running the ball 55% of the time because he's afraid of their quarterback. They're going to really kind of, put him in front of the fire hose and see what happens. And I think they'll get, a better result than not more often than the time. And with that, the Vikings have the type of team that can, again, win 10, 11, 12 games and maybe get a little bit further in the postseason than they were able to last year. But this is what they built their team for, really, ever since Kwesi and O'Connell took over in Minnesota. They've been building for this. They had to get around Kirk Cousins' salary cap hit. They had to rebuild their offense. They had to add new pieces defensively. This is the year they've really built for. So there's a ton of pressure on McCarthy, but I feel like he's the kind of guy that had the lowest floor of everybody that they might have had available to bring in, and they can build him up fairly quickly because of the experience that he had. I think he'll be pretty successful, and I would imagine they're pretty happy about it. And they're kind of saying the same thing about McCarthy that they did about Darnold last year, and we kind of laughed at him about that. So we kind of have to take him seriously now.
Always a pleasure, my friend. Great to have you back.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, guys.
Half hour brought to you by our good friends at Brewers Outlet, Reagan Street in Sunbury, the beverage supermarket, here on News Radio 1070 WKOK.
Party time, game time, or just fun time. Doesn't matter what time it is because it's Brewers Outlet time. The beverage supermarket has the area's largest beer selection. Imports, microbrews, ciders, and domestics. Pick from over 100 ice-cold 12-packs and dozens of 24-ounce singles. Soda, snacks, hot sauces, fresh roasted peanuts. Make it one-stop party shopping, and don't forget the pickle bar. So whatever you're celebrating or just doing it up, Brewers Outlet, Reagan Street, Sunbury wants to see you. And thank you for your years of patronage.
Hi, this is Season. For over 100 years, the Purdy Insurance Agency has been protecting families and businesses of the greater Susquehanna Valley and beyond. With the experience of our trained and knowledgeable staff, you can rest assured that your needs will be evaluated and met by some of the industry's best representatives. No matter what your insurance needs are, call Purdy Insurance today at 570-286-5855. Visit our website at purdyinsurance.com or check us out on Facebook to see what we can do for you.
An in-depth look at Penn State sports and more. This is the Steve Jones Show on News Radio 1070 WKOK. The Steve Jones Show is presented by Sunbury Motor Company, Purdy Insurance, and Brewers Outlet. Now from the Sunbury Motor Studio, here's Steve Jones.
Half hour brought to you by Purdy Insurance, Market Street in Sunbury. Go to purdyinsurance.com. Auto, home, life, business, boat, motorcycle, RV, Medicare. Whenever I've had insurance needs, I turn to Purdy. Why? They're the best in the business. Customer service means everything to them. All at Purdy Insurance, Market Street in Sunbury. Go to purdyinsurance.com. He roots for teams that get agonizingly close, but 9.8 times out of 10 fail. We bring in Matt Catrillo.
Except for the Eagles. But even before that was exactly the case.
Yeah, no kidding. They still have the fewest Super Bowl championships of any team in their own division.
Only by one now, with a very good chance to maybe tie the Washington football team.
All right. If you think so. It's been a drama-free.
I'm not declaring anything, but I'm just saying there's a good opportunity that they can do that. That's all.
It's been a drama-free camp for the champions, and I think that's very impressive. They picked up John Mechie.
Yeah, that's interesting. I had first tweeted out that I thought maybe that we were getting too many mouths to feed on offense, but after seeing Johnny Wilson go down with an injury, well then that might have been a good idea. So I guess we'll see how that plays out.
Well, Mechie's interesting in that coming out of Alabama, a tremendous prospect, then leukemia, And I give him credit for battling back to get back into the league, but he's still not quite what he was when he was coming out of Alabama. And that's not his fault. I mean, that's unfortunately. But he might be able to help.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, if anything, he just brings depth to what's already a good spot for the Eagles, especially in the slot behind Dotson. So, yeah, I have really no problem with the trade. It's not like the Eagles
that's
gave
fine.
anything up for him. And, in fact, both teams swapped picks that they got in the C.J. Gardner-Johnson trade.
Yeah,
so,
that's right.
I mean, it's not like Howie screwed anything up. He got a piece that maybe can help, and he got his draft pick back from the Gardner-Johnson trade. So I have no problem with it.
No. Now, once they lose to Dallas on opening night, no.
Well, here's my couple of concerns with the 2025 Eagles in terms of maybe trying to repeat. The cornerback spot opposite of Quinyon Mitchell is becoming a bigger and bigger concern now because it's been a three-man race. Looks like it's a two-man race with Kelly Ringo starting to get less and less first-team reps in practice. But nobody's really run away with it. You got a Dory Jackson who's here on a one-year deal, and then you just traded for Jacorian Bennett from Vegas, who I hope can maybe emerge as the guy. But he's had his shoulder problems, and he's playing catch-up. So you've got that safety. Sidney Brown, there's some good things about him, but overall I think he's kind of useless because he can't stay healthy because of the way he plays downhill, and he's kind of reckless as a hitter and as a tackler. And I really like Drew Makuba, but he got hurt in practice today, so we'll have to see about that. He was fantastic against Cleveland in the preseason game last week, but that's still a little bit of a concern. I mean, you got Cooper DeJean in there for certain packages. He'll be in the slot, then he'll move to safety. I really would just have preferred Cooper DeJean to be on the outside and be that guy next to Quinyon Mitchell if it were up to me. And I try one of these other three that are going for the outside cornerback spot, try for the slot. That's how I would do it, but I have all my trust in Vic Fangio after all the strides that he had this defense go with last year. But that's how I would do it. But those are really the two big concerns. I think they'll ultimately be fine on the defensive side with the pass rush. I think they may be slow to start, but I think that unit will slowly turn it up, kind of like what they did last year. So I'm not as worried about that, but I'm definitely worried about the secondary. No question there.
They may be 14-3. They'll beat Dallas by 2 touchdowns on opening night.
That's kind of. I'm thinking it'll be like an 8 to 10 point game. That's kind of where I'm at right now with Dallas. But honestly, other than that, I really would not be shocked if they started 1-3 because it is a brutal 4-game schedule, and it's all teams that can make big plays. And when you've got the secondary the way in the shape that it is right now, it's going to take some time, and they're going to give up big plays, which may hurt them. Now, if Stafford isn't ready to go for the Rams, the Eagles play them week 3, then I might feel a little bit better about that. But after that, I mean, you got Tampa in there. Obviously, you go to Kansas City week 2. I don't feel great about this 4-game stretch. So, honestly, I really think they have to win that Dallas game to get a win out of that because other than that, it's going to be really tough sledding. But I think things will get better as the year goes on. So I can really see a similar track that what they this year from what they did last year, where they start slow, but then they really speed it up and become a dominant team later on in the year.
So you'd rather play Jacksonville twice and Cleveland twice in the first 4 weeks?
Oh, no, I'm fine. I still think the Eagles are capable of winning those games. It's just can the secondary hold up some big plays? I don't care. I mean, I still look at the schedule ultimately, and I see an 11 to 12 win team this year, which I think is good enough to win the division. Probably not the number 1 seed, but they weren't the number 1 seed last year. They were number 2 seed, and they won. Things went in their way, and they still were home for the NFC title game. So, but I still think they're going to be an 11 to 12 win team.
Then there's the Yankees. That juggernaut. Right? Can't run the bases, can't play defense. How many times do you have to play the Twins?
Even that, they didn't sweep them. They finally swept the team that they should sweep in the Cardinals. I was shocked beyond belief that they finally swept a team As soon as I saw that, I'm like, what's a sweep? What's a broomstick look like? So, I mean, yeah, it's the same stuff, different day with the Yankees, and I'm just waiting for them to either lose in the first round and get swept in the wild card round or not make the playoffs. But looks like they will keep that last wild card spot because the Guardians haven't done anything to help themselves either. They were only back a half a game. Now the Yankees are up 3.5 over them. So I just don't know if the Guardians are going to have enough to catch them, and the Yankees are basically going to get that last one by default. That's kind of how I see this playing out. And it's going to be another slow, painful death for this team.
Aaron Judge will absolutely be the MVP of the league. There's no doubt in your mind about that.
Yes. I will say yes. Even though his numbers, he won't have as high numbers as we thought because of the injury, but yes. Will ultimately matter? No, because the Yankees are not good enough to win a World Series.
How is your pitching right now? Just asking. No, I don't. I don't know. I'm not going to pretend. What do you think? I follow the. I got work to do. I'm not sitting there looking at the Yankees roster for God's sakes. I mean, I can glance at it.
Fried right now. Now I get it. When you look at it, the whole course of the year, he's been fantastic. But the last 10 starts now we're talking about, it hasn't been good. But I tell you that he's not healthy. So I mean, much as I hate to say it, I mean I think the Yankees need to put him on the IL and let that blister heal because he's not helping them on the field. He's just not been sharp at all. And luckily, when his last start in St. Louis, at least the offense picked him up. But the pitching staff to me is not great right now. I mean, the bullpen has been kind of in flux all season and continues to be. But the starting pitching, especially from the guy Fried, not good. So I have no confidence really a whole lot right now, except maybe for the offense. But
so you're saying your team keeps it exciting for you?
Sure. If you call exciting watching a slow, painful death, then yeah, it's exciting.
I know you were excited over the Michigan sanctions. Probably worked out the way you thought it should. Except
Michigan, the Michigan Athletic Department, we've talked about this before, Steve, it continues to just baffle me in ways I never thought they could, and yet they rise to the occasion. I mean, you have got to cut me a break that you have the audacity to say that there is a lack of evidence or they interpreted the bylaws wrong, the NCAA. And the NCAA has done a lot of stupid things. I don't think there's any discretion about that. But to have the Goulions to say that and appeal it because you don't want to pay as much money in fines as you are going to right now, I mean, cut me a break. You could have just go and pay the fine, deal with everything else, take the chip and run with it. You got a championship out of it. Just shut up and leave it alone and do what you got to do and come back and talk to me later. Like, enough with this already. You got caught. You got your championship out of it. Now, just shut up and pay your fines and be done with it.
Well, so far it's kind of played out the way I thought it would. They'd do it. They'd appeal. Okay. And the NCAA's lack of understanding of their own rules is quite simple because, well, we don't want to hurt the current players. Okay, I agree with that.
Me too.
That's why you let them go to postseason play this year because there's something that you created in the NCAA called the transfer portal. They can leave after this year. Okay, that's when you say no postseason play in 26 and 27. That's when you do it because they can all transfer. These people, they're not creative. They don't think outside the box, and they just don't get how modern college football works anymore.
Yes, absolutely.
What does your kid want now?
I mean, you're right that the players today shouldn't be penalized for stuff that's happened in the past. But with the way, if you're not going to control the transfer portal, then you might as well go ahead and penalize the teams to the fullest extent by putting on these postseason bans.
What does your kid want now? I can hear them. What do they want now?
I told them to come back in a little bit. It's been a very busy day for Daddy. I'm getting ready for Friday Night Football. First full week back. I'm talking to you like, go play with Nana and Papa. They're here right now.
Wow. Todd, didn't take long for him to dismiss the kids. My goodness, I feel like I'm in a mansion. Good news, go play with the nanny.
I mean, just sometimes, Steve, I'm sure you've had your moments. You do what has to be done.
So you got rid of them.
I repeat, sometimes you do what has to be done.
Does your wife listen to this show? And if so, do you have to explain these segments?
Not really, because she's happy for the show, so she doesn't have to hear it herself.
Your opening game is what?
We are doing Lewisburg at Line Mountain. First time we will be at Line Mountain, so we're very excited about that.
Good. You'll have a great game. Looking forward to it. Thanks a lot for your time.
All righty. We'll talk to you guys next week.
We'll wrap it up in a moment. Brought to you by Purdy Insurance here on News Radio 1070 WKOK.
Party time, game time, or just fun time. Doesn't matter what time it is because it's Brewers Outlet time. The beverage supermarket has the area's largest beer selection. Imports, microbrews, ciders, and domestics. Pick from over 100 ice-cold 12-packs and dozens of 24-ounce singles. Soda, snacks, hot sauces, fresh roasted peanuts. Make it one-stop party shopping, and don't forget the pickle bar. So whatever you're celebrating or just doing it up, Brewers Outlet, Reagan Street, Sunbury wants to see you. And thank you for your years of patronage.
Understand at Milton right now, they have been spending hours trying to make sure they have the length of the red carpet needed for the dramatic entrance of the suit. It's part of his contract.
It's not the red carpet I'm concerned about, it's the smoke machines.
You know, it's bad. You're getting more like me every day. So proud of you. So proud of you.
I think it was always in there. It's just coming out now.
Oh, so proud. He's in the corner office rolling his eyes like, I thought I just had a contend with one. Oh, goodness.
He's known me long enough to know that that's not true. He's always had to deal with two.
Yeah. Triumphant return. He texted me. It's his triumphant return. Yeah. Did we get the horns that are going to be on each side and play Hail to the Chief when he walks in?
I'm sure he has the Braves band prepared. I'm not sure he has the Milton band prepared yet.
The Milton band. Here's the problem. It's a big problem. The Jersey Shore people are talking. They're talking to other teams. Tell me right now, this guy. So, yeah, opening night, Shikellamy at Milton. Very nice. And then Juniata and Selinsgrove.
Yep, out of Juniata. That one is on Eagle 107 at 6:15. I believe the Suit and the Chief are on at 6:30 on 1070.
Kevin's problem with the Hail to the Chief part is that he doesn't want Dave to think it's for the Chief.
Well, then he needs a new song.
Just telling you. I think there's a few issues in that booth.
Maybe that's how he keeps the Chief placated.
Has he already recorded the intro?
I couldn't tell you.
The intro is a big, big thing to him. I always try to point out there's 3 hours a game after it. He says, how much time do you put into your intro? And I said, I don't know. They point at me and I talk. I mean, I don't really sit there. That drives him nuts. But I want to know, has he recorded the intro yet?